I think we're live. Excuse me, that was a good start. Hi guys. Firstly, if you joined last or tried to join the live stream last night and thought, where is he? Where is this guy? We got the scheduling wrong. That was a complete mistake behind the scenes. Apologies. Whoa, 66 people online already. Yeah, apologies. It was just an error. There's lots of stuff going on here at the moment and mistakes happen. Anyway, I'm here now and thank you for joining me. Your local Oompa Loompa has just joined. Fantastic. Hello Jakob, hello Alan, hello Saul. How should we do this? So the idea with this live stream really is, the main reason for it is that I don't have to create a main video about this. Reaction videos are a bit of a pain to make and they don't always perform very well, so I thought instead of doing that, let's do a live stream about WWDC 2024, and that way we can just go through it together and you can ask me questions. They don't have to be questions about WWDC, they can be questions about anything you like within reason, but let's try and keep it on topic. So to put this in context, as you probably know, it's 9 o'clock in the UK now. And the live stream, the WWDC keynote finished about 2 hours ago, about an hour and a half ago, something like that. So I know as much as you. I've not obviously tried anything. I've made loads of notes over here, which we can go through. But you know, very, very fresh. This is all very, very fresh stuff. I'm sure you've got your own things on this, your own thoughts on this, etc. Firstly, guys, can you hear me okay? Just a very quick thumbs up. I am using the mic on the MacBook in front of me, which I'm hoping is okay. Just a quick thumbs up to say you can hear me, because otherwise I'm just talking to myself. Thumbs up. Lots of interesting comments already, actually. Yes, good, perfect. Okay, where should we start? Let's start with Phil Schiller and the iPod. Possibly my favourite part of WWDC this year. I thought the intro was really good. I think Apple has pared down their crazy transitions and the cinematic stuff. It was a bit of a laugh to begin with, but now we've seen all that stuff now, and I think it's better just to tone it down. And they've done a really good job of that. I just liked the opening though, particularly with Phil Schiller flying the plane, and he had a little iPod. He said something like, "I'm too old for this," brilliant. Great intro, and I like the way that the parachutes came down, and as they came down, they said, "Welcome to WWDC." The first operating system that appeared was Vision OS, which I thought was interesting, although they appeared, as it turned out, in the order they talked about them, which makes sense. They did that classic thing of talking about Apple TV Plus, which at that point you make a cup of tea and then you come back once they're finished. But in fairness, there are some decent shows on the way. We've got new Slow Horses, new Severance, loads of original films, some really big stars in there, DiCaprio and other people, Brad Pitt and a few others. So yeah, it's looking good for content. Let's just get straight into Vision OS. Guys, please ask questions. I'll stop occasionally, or should I just do the questions at the end? I'll tell you what, let's talk about, I need to manage this somehow. Let's talk about Vision OS. Let's talk about each operating system, and then at the end of that, we'll go into questions and then go on to the next one. Let's try that. So Vision OS, Vision OS 2, as this is going to be. So as you may know, I do have a Vision Pro headset and occasionally still use it. The biggest problem I have though is the fact that it's not launched in the UK yet, and that means that getting apps onto there is a bit of a faff. And the annoying thing about that is that I saw that they demonstrated a whole bunch of third-party apps that are making good use of this headset. Getting hold of those in the UK at the moment is a real faff, and I just haven't bothered. So one of the best pieces of news right at the end of the Vision Pro segment was the fact that the UK release, in tandem with Australia, Canada, France and Germany, is on July the 12th, which is really good news. One, because it means I can hopefully, unless this is region locked, I can sign in with my proper UK Apple ID and get stuff, which is great. And secondly, it may lift the interest levels a little bit in this thing, so I can continue to make some content about it and hopefully recoup some of that investment. So that's all exciting news. There was a release before the 12th, which I didn't make a note of. I think that was a release in Asia, but I might have got that wrong. If anyone knows that, let me know in the comments. What they do with what are they doing with Vision OS? Photos. You can turn regular photos into spatial images. Interesting. I'll need to try that to see what that's like. SharePlay. Am I the only person who can't get excited about SharePlay? Mainly because I've never tried it, which perhaps says more about my life than anything else. But yeah, you can use SharePlay to look at photos together. The reason they're doing that is to try and make this thing a little bit more, not quite as solitary, so you can do it with your friend or your mate, or your family member, look at a photo together in Vision OS. Okay, fair enough. The one thing that a few new UI kind of interactions and things. I think you can do that to bring up the home screen and do something like this to bring up the control center. Okay, interesting. The one thing that I was very excited by, because this is pretty much the only thing that I do with Vision Pro at the moment, which is connect this to this, which is my Mac. So I take the MacBook screen and put it in front of me and have this great big monitor. When Vision OS 2 arrives, we'll get a massive monitor. You can have it as a massive, huge, I think they called it a curved display, which was quite interesting, but basically more resolution and bigger. So they're not answering well, this is kind of an answer, I guess, to the whole thing of only having one display. You can't have two Mac displays in front of you. They're kind of answering that by having a much bigger one, so you can have a huge, all enveloping, is that the right word? Just a massive monitor basically in front of you. So I'm very excited by that. There's train support, which I'll never use because I'm never wearing that on a train ever. But that's nice for the people that want to do that. Spatial video. There's a new spatial lens that Canon has made for the R7 camera. Interesting. And then just a few other things about developer support for this. So I think Vision OS was a kind of mild update. It wasn't huge. It was just kind of, tweaking a few things and making the Mac stuff much better, which I think is telling. I think that kind of demonstrates potentially that the Mac integration for this, as I've suspected all along, is the killer app. I think at the moment that's the thing that a lot of people are using this for. So Vision OS, okay, I'm glad it was there. I was a little bit worried that it might not be featured at all, but that hasn't happened, so that's good. Right, let's jump into questions for a bit. Welcome on board, everyone. Big numbers already, which is fantastic. WWDC killed it. Okay, some very positive things from people here. There's always this question, isn't there? Do you think Steve Jobs would have been proud of WWDC? Genuinely don't know. I don't think anyone can ever answer that, could they? And equally, as I've always said with these sort of questions, we don't know how many of the things that were announced today he had his hands in already. This may have a lot of this stuff, particularly Apple Intelligence, which we'll come on to later. Some of that may have started with him at some point, so who knows? What else have we got? iPad OS 18 looks good. Come on to that in a bit. Galaxy Watch on WWDC. Oh, was there? Tell me more, Evans. Was there a Galaxy Watch on? What was it? Was one of the presenters wearing one? What's that all about? I hope so. That'd be brilliant. Excited. A lot of people saying excited by iPad OS. That's interesting. How long was it? If you're, I presume you're asking about WWDC, Stacey. It was about 1 hour and 40 minutes, I think, in total. Quite long, but they did motor through it. They really kind of bashed through the OS stuff just to get to Apple Intelligence, I think. Is this James? Is this Apple Intelligence mark we're seeing, or the actual mark? Who knows these days? Is this actually me, or have I actually created an AI version of Mark Ellis, and the real me is in the Bahamas, sipping a cocktail on the beach? Maybe that's what's going on. You don't know these days. That isn't the case, by the way. What a bold move to call it AI, Apple Intelligence. Completely agree. Have you installed the iOS 18 beta yet? No. No, I haven't done that. Vision is something about Vision OS. Vision OS, the most uninteresting bit, smallest user base. Well, yeah, it definitely is the smallest user base by quite a huge margin, I'd say. But I'm glad they started with it. I think they got it out of the way in the right way, I think. And it's, like I say, it's just a bit of a tweak, really. What else have we got here? Classic. Okay, we'll come back to the comment. Keep the comments coming. Keep the questions coming, guys. Let's move on to iOS 18. So, I'm sure we all know that we don't all know this, but anyone who watches this channel fairly regularly knows that I've gone for quite a big switch 2 months ago, which was from the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the S24 Ultra. And some people don't believe I've done this. I still get comments from people saying, "You're still using that iPhone, aren't you? Why is your iPhone on the table still? Why did you take that photo with a completely different phone? You're not still using that S24 Ultra, are you?" Well, I am. This is absolutely my main phone. This iPhone I've had to get out of the drawer today. One, to do some sponsor videoing of it, but also to get it out for this live stream. Apart from that, it's been in that drawer over there for 2 months. I've not unearthed it at all, never used it. This has been my main phone and it's been great. I've just finished a video about this, about an update on this switch that will go live on Wednesday, I think, which is very interesting, I think. So that's where I am at the moment. However, iOS 18. So home screen, finally we can use jiggle mode. Thankfully they didn't mention that phrase again, but we can use jiggle mode to move apps anywhere on the display. A little bit like what you've been able to do on this for a long time. So you can do that, which is nice. I like the way that they said it was to enable you to frame the background image properly. So if you've got your photo of your dog there and you want to get his face in there, you can put the apps around it now. Clever. Dark mode. There's a dark mode. In dark mode, you get the app icons as shaded darker, which looked very cool. And they have got this tint thing now, where you can tint the app icons either automatically based on the color of the background that you've got selected, or you can choose your own. Again, we've seen this before elsewhere. Larger icons as well. You can have larger icons. Control centers change. They've had this thing where you can now have several control centers, so you can scroll through them and choose, one for media playback, one for your home stuff. Interesting. Dev support for that as well, so developers can build their own stuff into there, I think, in some way. Privacy, this was interesting. So you can now lock an app. So you can lock an app that only you can get into with your authentication, be that Face ID or Touch ID or your passcode. You can hide apps as well, although they're not hidden because you hide them and they're put into a folder, I think, called Hidden Apps. Brilliant. A little bit like putting having a post-it note with your password on there. Although, in fairness, to get into those hidden apps, you do have to then authenticate yourself again. And you can decide which contacts can be seen by apps and that sort of stuff. But it's those first two that are interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'd love to know, what apps would you hide? Some of you probably wouldn't say this publicly, but which apps would you hide and lock so that people can't get in? Interesting, but quite useful, I'm sure, if you have apps that you don't want people to get into. Messages, RCS support, which they mentioned right at the end. Craig mentioned it right at the end. It was like a addendum type thing. But RCS support is basically a messaging standard which we've been waiting for Apple to adopt for a long time, and gets rid of the whole green. There's no such thing as a red bubble, blue green bubble thing. Doesn't get rid of it entirely, but it does kind of level the playing field quite a bit. New tap back stuff. I don't use messages because I don't use the iPhone. But like most people in the UK, I use WhatsApp. Do you? I mean, how many people on here use messages? I don't. Never really have done to any degree. So I never get that excited about the messages stuff. Text formatting is quite nice. The fact you can format messages now, and text effects, so you can have them bouncing around, and yeah, great. Messages via satellite is quite nice. That's useful, I guess, if you're completely stranded and you can't text your mum, whatever. Mail, some big changes in mail, although most of these mail, the big mail stuff, is in Apple Intelligence, which we'll come on to later. Although what they have done is, let's not beat around the bush, they've turned mail into Gmail. So you've got this kind of on-device categorization now, where it has primary, transactions, updates and promotions, and puts all the emails into the... Again, we've seen this before. All of the Google people are sitting there laughing, because it's that classic thing, isn't it, where, Apple has just invented automatic mail categorizing. No, they haven't. Okay, but nice to have that there. Something about maps which kind of came and went very quickly. When I watch events these days, I have to make notes, and making notes as quickly as I can, trying to keep up with Craig Federighi is quite tricky. He said something about maps and something about the hiking trails thing, which I think has come from the Apple Watch, I think. Interesting, not really. Wallet, you can now do tap to cash, so you can exchange Apple Cash just by tapping your phone. I don't think we still haven't got Apple Cash in the UK, so I can't test that. Some changes to Journal. I don't think Journal's coming to iPad OS and Mac or Mac OS. I don't know if anyone spotted that, but I didn't see a mention of that. That's what I want from Journal. Gaming, game mode. I can't get excited about games on a smartphone, but this is basically the same thing as the Mac, where it reduces background activity for better performance and better responsiveness from game controls and that sort of stuff. And then Photos, which he called the biggest redesign ever. And that they showed us this, where they've basically unified everything into a single view. So you have all of your photos, and then below it you have what they called the collections, I think. Okay, and you can filter stuff out. Nice. What I did like, what they referenced this a couple of times, which is the fact that it can automatically filter out photos of receipts and screenshots. So, when you're going through your photo library and there's like a photo of your train ticket in there and a nice photo of your family and 6 photos of the passport you were trying to take a photo of for identification purposes, whatever. We all do this stuff, and it just looks like a mess. So they've developed some kind of filtering system where you can get rid of all that stuff. That's nice. Some other bits and pieces for iOS. That part of iOS 18, that was it. There wasn't much more. Was there anything I've missed there? Not really. Send later in messages. Again, messaging, interesting kind of. That was it. It's not a big iOS update, really. Again, it's all about Apple Intelligence. I think they were just leading up to that, basically. Right, let's go back to your comments and questions. Someone has cleared this up for me. Thank you. The international rollout starts with China and Japan and Singapore on 28th of June, I assume. That's exciting. I mean, who's going to buy Vision Pro? I don't know where you're all coming in from, but wherever you live, if you're waiting for Vision Pro to be launched in your country, are you going to buy it? Let me know in the comments. Some interesting points here on Apple Intelligence. But again, we will come on to this, but yeah, very interesting this conference, but AI in English only. Yeah, I can't quite remember what the languages thing was in terms of the rollout for Apple Intelligence, but we'll get to that in a bit. What else have we got in here? Waiting for more languages. iPad calculator, let's come on to that in a minute. Loads of finally updates. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. There's lots of things that was just, okay, well, we've waited for this. There was nothing, I don't think, apart from Apple Intelligence, or even that is fairly okay. There was nothing really in the individual OS updates that really stood out as being unique. But then, is there ever any of that with WWDC? Not really. Apple does tend to wait and then steam in with their versions of stuff that's been around for a while. So I know what you mean. That's a really good way of putting it, though. Lots of, and finally, we have a whatever. Could you see Craig taking over from Tim? That isn't what's rumoured, is it? I think it's that a lot of people are saying John Turnus, I'm not sure how you pronounce his surname, that he is going to be the guy that potentially becomes the next main guy at Apple. I don't know if Craig will. I don't know. I think he's got that kind of persona where he's a bit too dad jokey to become the CEO, isn't he? He's got a very important job, obviously, but particularly in this one, in this WWDC, he's definitely the joker in the pack, isn't he? And can that person become the main guy? I don't know. Okay. Patty says, really like the iOS 18 and Siri update. Yeah, the Siri update we'll come on to in a moment. Okay, we'll come back to your points in a minute, guys. It's quite hard working out whether how long to spend on. I love the questions. The questions are far more interesting than me sitting here waffling on. So I'll try and go through this fairly quickly, and then we'll go on. Let's do that. Let me waffle through this pretty quickly. Then we'll just go for questions and answers. Audio and home they talked about then. So AirPods, quite like this. So I haven't got my AirPods out. They've introduced new gestures, head gestures. They didn't call it that, but head gestures for answering Siri. So if you're in a crowded lift and someone your mate rings and you know that he's going to start trying to embarrass you, Siri will say, "Do you want to answer or not?" And if you go like that, you don't answer. And if you go like that, it does answer. I like that. Very cool. New voice ice. Siri's just gone off. Brilliant. You do turn up at weird times, don't you? Very inopportune times. New voice isolation, so the other person can hear you properly. Great. tvOS, anything worth talking about there? 21:9 projector support, interesting. Enhanced dialogue, the subtitle thing was interesting, I suppose. Insight, which is that thing which I think Amazon TV has had for a long time, where you can, although I don't know how smart Amazon TV is, but Insight, basically based on what you're watching at that point in time, it will give you who's on the screen, so you can go into the actor's details, or you can find the song that's playing in the background and add it to a playlist in Apple Music. Very cool. That was tvOS. WatchOS 11. I've got unearthed my Apple Watch Ultra for this. Training load, if you are someone who's incredibly sporty and do lots of training for marathons and whatever you do. Niall, who works for this business, who is literally an athlete, he would make good use of this because he's incredibly fit and knows what he's doing with this stuff. Little old me, who does 5k on the treadmill a few times a week. But very cool. Works out your intensity of your training and gives you an effort rating from 1 to 10. That's all very cool stuff. New Vitals app for telling you what's really going on with your body. Well, not really, but giving an idea of what's going on with your body. They talked about smart stacks again, bless them. I'd forgotten this existed. They brought in smart stacks last year, I think, and I totally forgot they were there. I mean, I've not worn my Apple Watch for about 3 months now, but when I was wearing it, I totally forgot that Smart Stack thing was there. But they've updated that and given it access to live activities and a few other things, and some new watch face stuff. Not that exciting. If you just joined, by the way, I'm rattling through what I've noted down here, and then we're just going to crack on with questions, because the questions are far more interesting on these live streams. iPadOS 18 gets those customizable, the ability to move apps around wherever you want on the screen, like the iPad, like the iPhone. Fantastic. It gets all the photos updates. It's got a new floating tab bar for apps, where basically gives you more of the screen to play with for the app. Fantastic. What else? There was something I really liked on this, the Freeform. Does anyone use Freeform? Does anyone on this live stream? Has anyone opened Freeform, or done more than open it, look at it and think, nah, I'm interested. Calculator. We've got a calculator. Well, we will have a calculator in iPadOS 18. I quite like the way they introduced it. It was very tongue-in-cheek, very knowing, but they've done something very, very Apple with it, very cool with it. I don't think this is why they were waiting to put who knows why it's taken this long to get a regular calendar app. But there is a regular calendar app, but they've included something called Math Notes, which is a way that you can, I would not know how to use it. I couldn't use this. I could write 4 plus 4 equals, but this is for proper mathematicians, where you write out, are they called expressions? You write an expression out, and then as soon as you put the equals, it works it out for you and it puts it in there. And they showed us it doing it with graphs and things, and really clever. But again, I'll never use it because I'm not clever enough. Smart Script. This looks really interesting. This is where it basically learns. So if you're writing notes in Apple Notes, it learns your handwriting, so it gets an idea of how you undertake your handwriting. But what it does, it makes it look better, basically. So you scribble away as you would do normally, and what's it called again? Smart Script straightens it slightly. It still retains your kind of handwriting, but it just makes it more legible. for someone like me who has, as they say, doctor's handwriting, if you're a doctor, that's not putting you down at all, trust me. But people have always called for some reason, my handwriting doctor's handwriting. It's not very good. I can barely read it myself. So if you've got writing like that, and sometimes that prevents you from wanting to take notes, that smart script thing looks fantastic. Looking forward to trying that. You can spell check your writing and all that sort of stuff. Really cool. Then, here we go. macOS Sequoia. Was that right? Sequoia. I think that's how you pronounce it. When that name came up, I thought, oh no, I've got to learn how to say that. And say it about 1,000 times on YouTube videos. macOS Sequoia. Hopefully I've got that right. The only thing I want to mention this, well, passwords. There's a new passwords app. Nice. I think breaking that out from the settings app was the right thing to do. It's included. You can get a Windows version of it as well, which is interesting. Stop my iPad playing up. Safari, gaming, whatever, video conference, whatever. The thing that was really, really interesting with macOS, the next version, is iPhone mirroring, where you can literally bring up your iPhone display on your Mac and interact with it as though it's in front of you. I mean, the most obvious thing, and you start to think, well, why has it taken so long to have this feature, and why haven't we all been calling out for it? It's one of those classic things where when you see it, you think, yeah. So your iPhone appears on the display on your Mac, and you can use it. You can bring up apps, you can swipe between things, you can even drag content, and they only showed this doing it one way, I think, dragging content from your Mac onto your iPhone, just on the display, on the same screen. They didn't show doing it the other way. It'd be interesting to know if you can do it the other way. But regardless, even if you can only do it one way for some reason, that would save so much time. You know, the one thing I miss having switched to this is the ease of sending stuff from here to my Mac and vice versa. I still miss that every day, and that iPhone mirroring thing looks like a step above that, which I'll come on to that one day. And even your iPhone notifications appear on your Mac as well. Brilliant. So that was good. That was macOS Sequoia. Very, very small release, really, to be honest. But I've said this for the last 2 years, really. I've said that I don't know what else they need to do to macOS because it's damn near perfect. It's so good. There's nothing else they need to do. So there is some things, but they're only tiny things, which I'm glad that they are iterating it slowly. That's fine. Then we got to Apple Intelligence, and they called Apple Intelligence a personal intelligence system. So everything, I mean, again, I need to go to bed and sleep on this and think about it over the next 2 or 3 days, but I think the basic gist of Apple Intelligence is that it is exactly what they've called it. It's a personal intelligence system which is aware of you. It's aware of all your stuff, basically, but it's aware of it in a very, very privacy-focused way. So that they said that it's intelligence that understands you. There was something else they said. Where was it? Privacy. Yes, I've made a note somewhere. They said basically that it knows about you without having to ask questions and without storing the answers to those questions anywhere, because it's just aware of everything that's going on your phone, and because most of the stuff happens on device. Happy days. Some stuff does go off to the cloud, but they've developed what they called, where is it? Sorry, my notes are so all over the place with this. They've developed private cloud compute, which is from the sounds of it, a serious web server infrastructure that is running on M series silicon, which is interesting. I guess it's probably not an M3 or an M4, but it's running serious M hardware, and they have the same privacy approach as your iPhone. So if it does have to go to the cloud to do some more serious processing, it does it in the right way, according to Apple. And as I say, according to Apple, they mentioned several times that unlike a lot of other AI systems and server farms and stuff, Apple's can be interrogated and reviewed by security experts and given the thumbs up. So you're in good hands with Apple with this stuff, basically. So it's like a personal version of AI, and Apple Intelligence AI. I mean, it's made for them, wasn't it? I mean, talk about walking straight into it, into the perfect scenario where they can take that acronym and make it their own. We could write it, and they have done. So it's very personal, but it's not ChatGPT. Come on to that in a moment. It doesn't do the same thing as ChatGPT. It basically understands everything about you. So it understands your calendar, who texted you last week, what your mum said to you in that message 3 months ago. It understands that in that video you're doing this thing, or your friend Jeff on the 4th of October was on a farm somewhere in a photo, and you can have these serious conversations with it. And they have built in all the AI stuff that you would expect. So the assistance with wording your emails and image manipulation, so removing stuff from the back, all the stuff, again, the okay finally stuff that we've seen already on devices like this, that's all coming to it. But what was really interesting, what is exciting if it works, is Siri. It's this new version of Siri, and they've redesigned it. It's got a new icon. And what's very interesting is that they've removed the way that Siri, when you instigate Siri now on iOS 18, it doesn't pop up as the little circle. It basically outlines the whole display very quickly, kind of shimmers and does that Siri thing, but then it's just the outline of the display glows in the Siri colours. And a really smart move, I think, because that kind of Siri keeps coming up, go away. A really smart move, because it kind of removes Siri as an app, which feels like a fairly rubbish app. It kind of turns it into this fully integrated into your system thing. It's just there all the time waiting for you. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And they showed this kind of these conversations that you can have with Siri now. You can ask it things. It's aware of the context. You can, what do they call it? You can continue the conversation, basically. So it's aware of what you said a moment ago, and you can, I can't think of the examples they gave, but some very cool examples where you can basically continue the conversation, and it knows what you're referring to from things that you said a moment ago. So again, this isn't all, ChatGPT does that, but this is interesting because it's Apple's take on that. And it's this very personal take on that. But what they've done is, if that's not enough, if you do need the kind of ChatGPT stuff as well, the ability to query, those large language models about the history of the universe, you can do that. And they've partnered with ChatGPT, and there was a lot of rumours about this leading up to WWDC this year, but they've partnered with ChatGPT to make this happen, so you can actually query ChatGPT from within the Apple ecosystem, and it's all very secure and all the rest of it. It asks if you want to share your data with ChatGPT, and it looks pretty good, I think, to be honest. The biggest question with this, the biggest thing, as you would suspect, is, will it be any good? Because it's still Siri. They said at the start of this that they're working towards a vision. They've been doing this for many, many years, which is obviously true. But is this the Siri we've been waiting for? That is the big question. We've seen all this stuff on the keynote. We haven't played with it ourselves yet. The other thing I think I heard this. I think it's going to be beta to begin with. If I've got that wrong, let me know. But I'm fairly sure that even when it comes later this year, I think it's still going to be beta for a while. Might have got that wrong. And also, you need at least an iPhone 15 Pro to make this work, and an iPad or a Mac with an M1 or newer chip. That latter thing isn't surprising. I guess the iPhone isn't as well, but yeah, if you've got an iPhone 14 or anything below that, Apple Intelligence ain't going to work. But it's free as well, which is nice. They've clearly been doing a lot of work on this, and it looked very, very impressive. But we need to try it. That's but you've got to put it in the hands of the public, and that's where it really comes to, the truth comes to light, doesn't it? So fingers crossed it's as good as they were showing. Right. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on. Let's take some questions and have some water. Okay. Welcome on board, everyone. Lots of people here today. Again, I started by saying this. If you joined yesterday, and expected this to happen yesterday. We got the scheduling wrong, apologies, but we did fix it today, obviously. Stacey, has he seen anything today that might tempt him back, I wonder? Tempt me back to the iPhone. I'm going to be writing about this tomorrow, so just stay tuned. Lots and lots of interesting emojis and things going on here. Do you think they've not shown? Do you think that they have not shown nothing interesting about new macOS? I think what you're saying there is nothing interesting about macOS. I mean, that kind of comes back to what I said a moment ago, that macOS, I don't think they need to do much with it. I think it's already brilliant, to be honest. The addition of Apple Intelligence. Oh, the thing I didn't mention about Siri is the fact that you can now type into it. So if you don't want to say stuff to Siri, you can type your question, which, why haven't we had that until now? That's going to be, and that looks very good on the Mac. That looks very, like a very important addition to the Mac in particular. Here we go. Samsung has had a private folder for apps. My bank is in there. Yeah. Well, again, it's Apple jumping on the bandwagon fairly late, but that's what they do. What else we got here? So many questions and comments here. This sort of thing is annoying, isn't it? Like, they've done all this stuff. They've developed this incredibly complex and powerful Apple Intelligence, yet you still, well, unless it is buried in there somewhere, you still can't close all of the apps that you've got open. I mean, I suppose the argument to that would be you don't need to these days, but you should have the option to, shouldn't you? That's interesting, Lewis. So, not sure if it's an Apple issue or a dev issue, but it seems as though you can only change the colour of Apple's own default apps rather than third-party app icons. That, I wouldn't have thought that's going to be the case going forward. That, again, these are brand new releases. I'd guess by the time that this goes live later this year to the public, those kind of things will be ironed out, and developers will have jumped on board. Maybe there's something that developers have to do to get their app icons ready for that darker shading, possibly. Imagine the iPad M1 and M2 will be really good value now that iPad OS 18 looks pretty much the same and prices are being driven down by lack of interest. That's a very good point. And if they're M1 and M2 iPads, they will get Apple Intelligence as well. So I agree. I think an M1 iPad Air and an M1 iPad Pro, very, very good buys at the moment, I think. Really good buys. Quite surprising that this year's Dub was slightly shorter than last year's. I think last year's was over 2 hours. I'm surprising, maybe, not disappointing. If they could get it down to an hour, I'd be happy. In fairness, there's so much stuff to go through, but I start to flag after an hour and a half. It starts to get quite tough going. But was it really over 2 hours last year? Wow. Mark says, didn't see albums in new photos. Albums is all I use to organise. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looks like they've removed a lot of stuff from photos, doesn't it? And that's dangerous. You know, assuming that every user, you know, there are users out there who don't rely on that stuff. They do their research, obviously, and they have a very good idea of what is used within their apps. I know that, but yeah, it does look like it's been stripped down a lot, and we'll have to see how that plays, really. Do they usually hide other features from updates in the keynote? They don't really hide it, they just don't mention some of them, do they? I know after the keynote they have the State of the Union, which is this kind of much more in-depth, very techie, diving into everything to do with the updates. So a lot of the stuff gets unearthed then, but they have to pick... It's more of a marketing, the keynote, the one that we've just watched earlier, is more of a marketing play, really. It's dumbed down a little bit for people like me, and they don't go into too much geeky detail, but yeah, I don't think they hide it. They just choose, they pick and choose what they want to make I guess what they want to make the headlines, that's the key thing. There's some super thanks going on here, guys. Thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. I've lost my place on the comments here. Let's try and get back to where I was. Let's have a look. All right, we're back. Keep the questions coming, guys. Some really good stuff in here. Some people saying that you do use freeform to do mind mapping. Okay, that's good. I'm glad people use it. I just don't find a use for it at all. No, freeform feels useless to me. Yes, I use freeform quite a lot. Nice, okay. Will AI filter down to older devices? So no, so if you missed that, it's going to be iPhone 15 Pro and newer. And you'll need an iPad or a Mac with the M1 chip or above. So it's not going to filter down, which I guess that's how it is, isn't it? It obviously needs certain things in the latest generation of the chips, which is fair enough, I guess. Is it fair enough? Maybe it's not fair enough. People will moan about this, and you get into that whole thing of, well, could an A17 or whatever, surely it could have a good go at using Apple intelligence, but maybe not. Lots of people saying that they use freeform. Nice. Nice. I mean, like I said, I don't use it, but that's good. I like the app lock. Yeah, correct, Sequoia. So I got Sequoia right, did I? It sounds strange. Maybe it's a British thing. You know, we have place names like Coventry and Northampton. Sequoia sounds very exotic, and Brits do study with that. Now say aluminium. Aluminium. I don't say aluminum. I also say Z rather than Z, which really annoys certain people. Love the mirror thing. What was the mirror thing? What was the mirror thing, Kev? I'm trying to think what the mirror thing was. Tell me what the mirror thing was. Use Samsung DeX on your Mac. Okay. Can you? I don't know if you can. This is a very good question. Do you think 1Password and other password managers have been Sherlocked? No, I don't think so. Again, a lot of this comes down to whether or not you go cross-platform. So if you've got an Android phone and an iPhone, the Apple password system isn't going to work because you can't get it on your Android phone. Admittedly, if you've got a Windows laptop and a Mac, it will work because there's a Windows version of Keychain or whatever it is that Apple has created for that. Password managers generally, and I use a password manager. Generally speaking, they do hold a lot more information. They have more vaults, more options for saving lots of different types of secret stuff that you don't want people to see. So there's no saying that Apple won't build that kind of stuff in. But I think I made a few notes of what you can store in the new passwords app, and it's a dedicated app now for this. I didn't make a note, fantastic, but it was mainly logins, passkeys and that sort of stuff, whereas password managers give you a bit more stuff that you can put in there. So I don't think they've been Sherlocked. It will have an impact, absolutely. It will have an impact. If you reside purely in the Apple ecosystem, is there a reason to have another password manager? Maybe not. Maybe not. Handwriting can't be that bad if you're reading them back. Trust me, it's pretty bad. What's creepy? Someone's saying something's very creepy. Ooh, what's this? Massive shame there's no Apple Intelligence coming to the HomePods. Guess it's like Gemini not currently coming to the Google speaker. Why do companies not care about the smart home anymore? That's a really good question. I guess part of the reason it's not coming to the HomePod is because the HomePod, I can't think what chip it runs, but it's not an M chip. And although the iPhone 15 Pro doesn't have an M chip either, does it? Maybe it's the chipset. Maybe it hasn't got the right chip. Maybe we'll get an updated M1 version of the HomePod soon with this, because it's got to make sense to have it on there, hasn't it? Unless Apple has given up on the HomePod again. It's happened before, hasn't it? Oh, that's interesting. Now I'm kind of sorry I bought the iPad Pro M4. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I've talked about this recently. If you've watched my reviews of the iPad Pro, the M4 version, I and along with a lot of other reviewers have been saying, let's see what comes with iPad OS 18 and AI and all this sort of stuff. And well, actually, everything they've announced today can run on much older in inverted commas, iPads, can't it? It can run on the M1, the M2, which they all get Apple Intelligence. So what do you need the M4 iPad Pro for? That's confused the picture even more, hasn't it? We haven't really got anything where, although if we had something where they said this is only available with the M4 iPad Pro, you can guarantee people will have hammered them for that. So I know. I mean, the new iPad Pro is there if you need to upgrade. If you've got a very old iPad Pro, I would not go from the M2 to the M4 iPad Pro. It makes no sense whatsoever. What bottle is that? Well, we're not sponsored by this today, by the way, but it's Lark. Really good. I like these. Yeah, it's great. Jimmy Fire Dragon, which is one of the best names I've seen on here so far, got me very, very excited for the next year's Dub. Yeah, but that's quite a long time. That's a year away now, Jimmy, isn't it? I mean, shouldn't we be focusing on what's happening now? Where is the Whoop? I got rid of the Whoop, but then Whoop very recently launched some new bands, and I've decided to order one. I spent £65 on a band, and I'm going to put it back on. I was just getting fed up with it wasn't very comfortable, and I'm testing this Ultra Human ring at the moment as well. So, but I am going to get it. I will put it back on. It's amazing what you guys notice that I am wearing or not wearing. What is that orange sticker on your shirt? There you go. It's Superdry. Not sponsored by Superdry. This is an interesting fact. The first handwriting recognition algorithms were trained in the 1990s with the notes that were written by Jerry. Won't try and pronounce that. Jerry joked he was the reason why it was rubbish. Brilliant. I did go to Samsung, Larkspur Rovers Ladies FC. I did, yeah, you've obviously missed it, but I switched to this a couple of months ago. Will I switch back to this? Imagine the absolute hammering I'm going to get if I do that. No, I keep putting that face, well, it's annoying, sorry. iPad OS, wow, that was disappointing. Yeah, there wasn't much there, was there? Private iCloud, lol. Again, do you think the M4 iPad will get the love it deserves? Well, I don't know. Does it? I mean, not really. Apart from the fact that Apple is clearly very proud of it, and it's the thinnest Apple device ever. But apart from that, yeah. Whatever. What happened to your Solo Club live streams? I mentioned this on on one of the vlogs recently. We've stopped doing them because it doesn't quite fit in with the. This is my other channel, by the way. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's Mark's. What's it called? What is that channel called? Mark's Creator Diary. I think that's what I can't think of the name of my second channel. Basically, it's vlogs from behind the scenes here, but they're very different to what we were doing previously on that channel. So we have dropped the live streams, partly a time thing as well. There's so much going on. Thank you, KJ, for the super thanks. That's lovely of you. Let's answer your question. Explain why Apple Intelligence isn't on Vision Pro. It's available for all devices with M1. Vision has M2. I paid $5,000 for low optimization. I feel a bit... I'm just the messenger, KJ. How do I not answer this? I can tell you're angry by this, and I understand why. It's not on Vision Pro, is it? Which is weird, because Vision Pro is powered by an M2 chip. So it should be capable of it. I don't know. That's a really good point. Why isn't Apple Intelligence coming to Vision Pro? Maybe it is. No, well, they'd have said, wouldn't they? Because it was Mac, iPad, and iPhone. I don't know, but I know why you're angry. And yeah, you don't pay $5,000 for low optimization, do you? I don't know. That is a question though for Tim Cook, I'm afraid. How's my weekend? It was great, thank you. Thank you for asking. Was it great? I think it was. It was busy, but it was good. No AI. This is another one. No AI on Apple Watch. That's a real shame. I have the Humane pin, the Humane AI pin arriving tomorrow. Let's not get into that topic. Yeah, no AI. Yeah, again, that's got to be the chipset, hasn't it? Because a lot of this AI stuff is happening, Apple Intelligence stuff is happening on device, and I would guess that the chip in here, which I can't remember what it is, W something, it's probably not going to cope with on-device AI stuff. I guess we're probably a little way off that. I think. I guess Apple would say, we just use your iPhone for that stuff, which is kind of fair enough for the time being, I think. Maybe that's why it doesn't work with this. Maybe their thinking is, it's your iPhone. When you're out and about, it's your iPhone. If you're sat at a desk, it's your Mac. And if you're using Vision Pro, you connect your Mac to your Vision Pro, and you've got Apple Intelligence anyway. I'm, again, just just guessing here. Just a messenger. It's frustrating that AI software advancements are outpacing hardware upgrades. No M4 yet on the Mac Studio, and yet another year of waiting. Why aren't all machines equipped with M4 by now? I don't know. Like I said in my review of the iPad Pro, it's a really weird time where we've got, this, which is technically more capable than any Mac. I know you can spec Macs up more than this, but this has a newer chip. It literally has a newer chip in here compared to the Mac, the very expensive Mac that I'm using at the moment in front of me. It's really strange, and it can be a whole number of things, can't it? It can be manufacturing issues. It can just be the product life cycle. It can be Apple dragging their heels, making decisions on things. It can be so many different things. I think also, and this isn't, I'm not being an Apple apologist here, but and that they're a huge business, obviously, and they've got lots of money in the bank, and they've got lots of resources, but you do get, I always think with WWDC, you get an idea of how much stuff is going on at Apple, how many things they're working on concurrently, and the more devices they have, the more things they've got going on in terms of operating system updates, updates to now Apple Intelligence across the entire thing, entire stack as they call it, services, dealing with and working with third-party developers, everything. There's so much stuff, and supply chains and everything. There's so much stuff, so many moving parts, and WWDC always gives me just another appreciation for how complex these businesses are. But again, the net result of that should not be confusion for the buyer, though, for the consumer. So it is frustrating, and I don't have an answer to that, unfortunately. But I guess we'll get Macs later in the year, won't we, with M4 chips? iPhone. The mirror thing was the iPhone mirroring. Yes, the mirroring thing was fantastic. Yeah, mirroring was brilliant. That does make me very tempted. It really does. Lots of password manager recommendations going on here, and a few other things. So, one password out of here. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens. There was one Sherlocking I thought of. Oh, I know what it was. It was the Apple Intelligence stuff. It's the way that they've done the proofreading. I think they call it proofreading, which looked spookily like Grammarly. If anyone on here uses Grammarly, I use it all the time. It's a really good tool just for polishing your text in terms of just grammatical mistakes that you might miss with a spell check. It looked very similar to Grammarly, and I looked at that and thought, I don't need Grammarly if this comes out, because I only write stuff on the Mac, and if that is built into the operating system, why would I use anything else? So that was the one Sherlocking that I noticed. Potential Sherlocking. This is where I love YouTube. Give me my refund if you're not reading the super chats. I did respond to your super chat, KJ. I did respond. Interesting. R.I.P. to Final Cut. Why? That's interesting, Logan. What's happened to Final Cut? What has happened today that's kind of done that? Tell me more. That's something I've missed there, clearly. A few questions about the betas. I don't know the answer to the beta stuff. I don't tend to get involved in beta testing. It's something which I tend to shy away from, mainly because it's a time thing, really. We know I've got lots of videos that I'm focusing on at any one time, and I could go down a real rabbit warren of stuff. But yeah, it's yeah. I don't do the beta thing basically. I admire people that do. Maybe I will this time. Who knows? I have got an iPhone not being used, to be fair. Twitch back. Lots of interesting comments here. I need to pick one. What's this, Greg? Greg is a regular. After no new major capabilities in the iPad Pro, running Mac apps or something, I'm looking at the iPad Air as a low-cost alternative. Really good point, Greg. And I still think the iPad Air is just the best all-round iPad ever. I've got a massive soft spot, as you know, for the iPad Mini, but that hasn't been updated for ages. And they have updated the iPad Air. We now have a bigger one. You've got to have a really good reason to go for the iPad Pro. I'm not sure what that reason is at the moment. It might just be that you want the promotion and Face ID, fair enough. But apart from that, yeah, and like you say, Greg, the fact that they haven't really done much to iPadOS 18 to make you think, oh, I need the Pro for that. The Air is such a good alternative. It really is. Do you think the iPhone 16 line will get the Apple Intelligence? Oh yeah, I mean that definitely will, Jimmy. So it's going to be iPhone 15 Pro onwards, basically, from what they were saying. KJ, you keep putting the same comment. I don't know if you're just copying and pasting. I did read your super chat, mate. Lots of what's the point of the iPad Pro M4 chip now? Why has Final Cut Pro 2 for the iPad still not arrived? Well, has it not? I have not double checked it, to be fair. So that's interesting that it hasn't. I have no idea why. Okay, so Max DPT is saying, as far as I know, Apple Intelligence and all of its features will be available this summer on all supported devices, M series devices and A17 Pro. Yeah, I thought they said that it's going to be beta, whatever however you say it, later this year as well. I got the impression that when it launches to the public later this year, it's going to be in beta. Which it doesn't matter if it is, but I just got that impression. That's what they said. Might have got it wrong. Some great questions, guys, as always. New macOS Sherlock the Magnet app. Well, I'm not sure what the magnet. Oh, it's the magnet. Oh, that was a very good point. You can drag the. This is a bit of a Windows feature, dare I say it. But yeah, you can now drag Windows to the side of the screen and it will automatically snap it to the side, and you can have them in the corner or whatever. Great, perfect. But yeah, the Magnet app, I've not tried Magnet before, but I guess that does the same thing. Does it Sherlock those apps? Possibly, because if it's built into the operating system, it's such a simple feature. Why would you pay for anything else? Yeah, possibly. I'm at the bottom of the questions here. I can keep going through, guys. You got me for a few more minutes if you've got anything else you want to run by me. I mean, just general thoughts on WWDC. Did you get what you wanted out of it? Was there anything missing that you think they should have done? I know we can talk until we're blue in the face about the M4 iPad Pro, can't we? Not being catered for during this this WWDC, but with hindsight, was it ever going to be? Possibly not. Would you save for the iPhone 16? If you mean would I say? Oh, if you mean would I wait for the iPhone 16 to go back to the iPhone? Maybe. Who knows? Possibly. Will Apple Tap Cash work in the UK? I don't think so. I don't think we have Apple Cash over here, do we? Still, I don't know why. Parker says Vision OS updates are garbage. I don't think they were garbage. They were just fairly light, and I haven't got a big problem with that, to be honest. Interesting. The only disappointment was the same old Files app on iPadOS. I don't mind the Files app on iPadOS. It tends to do the job. It's a bit clunky. It's a bit... When you compare it to the Mac and Finder, that's like a nice warm pair of old slippers. But so it's a bit tough at times to get your head around, but it doesn't bother me really. D says, is Craig overdoing the stunts? No, it's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? It's very tongue in cheek. They have toned it down a little bit, I think. I tell you what, I did notice. I don't know if anyone else noticed this. This is me being a bit of a geek when it comes to video production, but I think it was during when he was talking about the Apple Intelligence stuff. I've got nothing to base this on, and this is just not definitely the case, but it sounds like they overdubbed a few things. So when he said something like when he mentioned that it was ChatGPT-4, he said something like powered by ChatGPT-4. It was clearly that had been overdubbed. It had been put in after he'd been on stage, basically. There were 2 or 3 instances where it sounded something changed in the tone of his the recording, where it was clearly put in after the fact. I found that interesting. It's probably not that interesting. Mark misses the live events. Yeah, I know what you mean. But then there's the whole thing with the crowd and all the Apple people clapping and cheering got a bit annoying, didn't it? But I know what you mean. And they do, if you go to WWDC, I've not been invited. I've not gone. I've never been to Apple Park. But if you do get invited, they have a stage there with the big display, the big screen, and Craig comes out, I think, normally, and Tim comes out, and they do a little number. No, they talk to the crowd, obviously. So there is a live element, but it's only for the people that are invited to Apple Park. But I know what you mean. It would be nice to have some kind of hybrid, wouldn't it? Surprised they're not bringing more games to tvOS. It doesn't bother me, but yeah, I know there's a market out there for it, absolutely. Mike says, it's funny, it sounds like the future is here and it'll be very functional and useful, but weirdly kind of boring. That's an interesting point. I assume you're referring to Apple Intelligence and how efficient these machines are getting at helping us. And it's all about helping us, isn't it? That thing where they did some demonstrations of Apple Intelligence and Siri, where they would, I think one of the presenters was having a conversation with it, and it just drew out everything that she wanted. And it seemed like a very natural conversation. And I remember watching it and thinking, it looks like the sort of thing that you could confidently just talk to, and if it works as it says it does, you should get out of it what you want without any faff, which is brilliant, amazing. But like you say, it's just functional and useful, isn't it? It's not. It's very utilitarian, isn't it? Which is where we're headed, I guess. That's where the emoji thing comes in. I guess emojis are made, and there was a new emoji, wasn't there? What was it called? A new type, Genmoji, a Genmoji. I didn't quite get any of that, but then I'm 43. I don't understand emojis really, but I guess that expressive stuff is kind of built to be a bit less boring. I don't know, but I know exactly what you mean, Mike. We are heading that way, which is a shame. Didn't give away much for new products. Wondering if new Apple Watch Ultra this year. I think we'll probably see a new Apple Watch Ultra. I think there's going to be a big Apple Watch update, they think, don't they, later on in the year? Is it the 10th anniversary? Who knows? As Apple Intelligence is essentially ChatGPT, why not try try Windows? Have you mistyped that there, Andrew? Although it's not ChatGPT, is it? Because it's the personal version. Because ChatGPT doesn't know anything about you. It hasn't got a clue who you are, or what you do, or what you did last week, or who texted you yesterday, or whatever, or where you're going on Thursday next week. It doesn't know any of that stuff. Whereas Apple Intelligence does. And I think that's the differentiator here, which is why they've partnered with ChatGPT for the other stuff, which does make sense. It's a very obviously Apple way to do this. I would like to have seen them restructure the Apple One pricing. It's very expensive for what you're getting in return. I have an Apple One subscription, and I use probably about 10% of it, particularly now where I'm not really using my iPhone much. It is expensive. It's not a cheap thing to get into at all, is it? Whether or not you get... I think you get value for money if you used all of that stuff. But who does? I don't think many people do they? It's the sort of thing that you kind of fall into paying for and just forget you're paying for it. How many of those subscriptions have we got? Crikey. Excuse me, voice is going. I'm really looking forward to satellite text messaging. I'm guessing there isn't any way for them to respond unless you maintain the satellite connection, but I doubt it will work like that. Yeah, that's a very good point, isn't it? Is it one way? Is it just one way, or when you get that satellite connection, can you still receive messages? I don't know. At least you can get a message out. That's reassuring, isn't it? Greg says, overall, I thought WWDC was very entertaining, and the Apple Intelligence with OpenAI as free is going to be awesome. Yeah, that's a good point, because it is ChatGPT 4, isn't it, which you generally pay for. I've got a subscription to that. I did wonder, does that mean that you don't technically need it? As in you don't need a subscription? Although he did say towards the end that if you are paying for ChatGPT, you can link your account or something. But then, would you need to do that if they're using ChatGPT 4? Because that's the good one. That's the really good one, isn't it? I don't know, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to dive into that. Thank you for the $2. Is the $2 for me to buy a de-esser? I should confirm that I'm using the mic on the MacBook Pro. I do have a proper setup here, all kind of rigged up and not working with this MacBook Pro. Ever since I bought this very expensive MacBook Pro, this rig hasn't worked, and I haven't had the time to fix it, and that would have had a de-esser included. So thank you, Solo A, and I'll spend the $2 on a new chair. Maybe that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? No, thank you, I appreciate that, and yeah, apologies about the de-esser, but I do like it when people take a very technical view of the channel and what we do here. It doesn't happen very often, but you get people commenting on very technical aspects which most people don't know or care about, but it's nice to know that some people take an interest. But yeah, interestingly, hopefully it sounds, if this works, if this is sounding good, and it says a lot about the MacBook Pro mic, because I'm just using that. Yes, so Daniel thought they overdubbed a few bits. I think they did, didn't they? There was some overdubbing going on, wasn't there? Joe, overall very happy, but the image playground stuff makes me feel a bit icky with the whole conversation around AI art. Yeah, I'm not an artist at all. I can't draw for toffee, but I do feel for people who can, and it can't be nice to watch your craft be not destroyed, but certainly almost made light of, really. That you can type a few words into a text box and have a very good drawing appear. You know, I don't like that. I know. I guess that's what you're referring to, Joe. I'm not sure what the conversation is around AI art. I've never got involved in it, but I can imagine there's a lot of interesting debates happening around that. Elon is ripping into Apple on Twitter. Oh, what's he saying? X, remember, it's not Twitter anymore, Logan, it's X. I'll have to look at that later. I can only imagine what he's saying. Mike, okay, let's have a weird take. But will the advanced AI features being locked into the 15 Pro and above actually clear a space in the market for products like the R1, the Rabbit R1? No, I don't think it will. I think the Rabbit R1 and the Humane AI pin is they just don't work. They're trying to do stuff which just doesn't seem to be possible at the moment, and one of them is a bit of a fraud. I won't go into that because it's all a bit conjecture and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I don't think it will. I know what you mean, Mike. They are limiting access to Apple Intelligence, but that's going to dissipate fairly quickly. Give it a year, 2 years, most people will have access to this. But I know what you're saying. All the reviewers ignore the lack of iPadOS updates. Well, give them a chance. It's only just happened, isn't it? Let's see what happens. I mean, I agree that the lack of iPadOS updates. But we've had this for years. Every year we think, will iPadOS get a huge update? And it never happens. The huge update this year is Apple Intelligence, and that is across the entire platform, apart from this and the watch. But I don't think we ignore it. I think it is frustrating. But then you start to think, it's one of those things that you say, oh, I wish they did more with iPadOS. Then if you get challenged on that, if someone says to you, what should they do with it? Most people then kind of sit there and go, just make it better, make it more like a Mac. And then you get into the whole Mac versus iPad thing. And It's a tricky one, isn't it? Who would want to be in Apple's shoes and making this stuff and making these decisions and disappointing people and picking the features? It wouldn't be me, anyway. Andrew, given that Apple Intelligence is essentially Copilot, why not try a Windows Qualcomm laptop with that Sammy Ultra phone? It is. I mean, I've not used Copilot yet, but I've seen it in action. I saw it in action in Taipei last week. It's very impressive, and it's very similar to Apple Intelligence. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to trying out the Snapdragon X Elite in the studio to get my hands on something running that chip. Greg, did you notice the swift bird shadow on the grass as it was getting closer to the building at the beginning? No, I didn't. But there's loads of little Easter eggs in these things that Apple makes. If I had the time, I'd stop and watch it again. Would I watch it again? I probably wouldn't. I didn't, but that's great. I love that sort of thing. Mary, where were you last night? I was at home. What was I doing last? I was watching Wrexham, the Wrexham thing on Netflix. Is it on Netflix? Whatever it's on. I was sat there with my girlfriend watching Ryan Reynolds and the other one running Wrexham FC because I had no idea that we'd misscheduled the live stream for tonight. Completely our fault. I won't lay the blame on anyone. It was a collective thing. But yeah, we got it wrong. Sorry. It wouldn't have made sense anyway because WWDC happened today. And what on earth? Wait, it could have been a preview, couldn't it? But that's what I was doing last night. I was blissfully unaware, basically. You have to use an iPhone to attend Apple Park. Well, possibly, Mark, although I've used an iPhone for many, many years and I still wasn't invited to Apple Park before this year. But maybe that's it. Maybe. But I'll use whatever I want to use. I will not be, driven by these brands. This is the problem, isn't it? Siri has been so bad compared to Alexa, and it is so bad, so bad. It has to be a massive leap forward. This, fingers crossed. Lots of questions coming through. I'll keep going. It's 10:10 in the UK. I should be going to bed soon, but just for you guys, I'll keep going for as long as we have questions. The maths feature will be a headache. The maths feature on iPad. This is the what's it called? Math. What do they call it? I've already forgotten. Math something. Math notes. It will be a headache for teachers. Will it? I think it might be quite handy. Although it gives you the answer, doesn't it? Maybe not. That's a very good point. This is a good point, Peter. Will the average guy use all those AI features? I don't think so. So my experience of AI with anything that's had it up to date, rather, this is a great example actually. The S24 Ultra. This was launched right at the start of the year. I went to the hands-on of this behind the scenes in Vegas during CES, and they had this great big demo of it. These people who had been very highly trained on how to show the AI stuff, the Galaxy AI stuff on this phone. It was all very impressive. I left that. I obviously got one of these, reviewed it. I've kept this one to run and be my main phone. I don't use any of the AI stuff. I occasionally do circle to search, but that's it. I don't do any of the stuff to help me write the text stuff. I don't do any of the summarizing of notes, mainly because I don't do much note taking on that, to be fair. I don't have any need for any of it. I occasionally use some of the photo features, like getting rid of things in the background and reflections and stuff like that. But even that is quite rare. It's this race for AI, isn't it? It's this race for doing AI stuff with your products. TVs have got AI processors in them. I went to several TV launch keynotes at CES in January, and all of them had a new AI. All their TVs, Panasonic, Sony, Samsung, all of them had a new AI processor. And when you asked them what that did, it was kind of, this isn't verbatim, but their response was something along the lines of, where the picture and the sound's better, isn't it? But that's not AI, is it? Okay, it might be using machine learning for stuff, but it's not AI. So it's this race to have AI in your products. And I suppose the hope with Apple Intelligence, and we don't know this until we get our hands on it, is that it is that thing that is genuinely useful. You can just have a conversation with Siri, with your phone, with your laptop, whatever. to find that thing that you'd forgotten about. They gave a few examples that just kind of clicked with me. So, for instance, the other day I had to get a photo of my driving license for something to send to someone. I knew I'd taken a photo of it, but I couldn't remember when. I couldn't remember. That was it, really. I couldn't remember when I'd taken it, but I knew it was there somewhere, and I was trying to sort through it. I couldn't. It was just a real faff. If I could just say to Siri, where's that photo of my driving license I took recently? If that just brought it up, and then I could just drag it into the mail message and send it. Happy days. That is what AI should be. It should be aware of you in the most privacy-focused way. And if it's aware of everything you do, everything that's happened recently to you, and what's coming up in the future, that's where it shouldn't feel like you're using AI. It should just feel a natural way of working with your device. That's it, isn't it, really? The other stuff is just fluffy, kind of impressive things. It's not particularly useful in day-to-day life. It's a very good question, Peter, that. Lots of things about Siri here. Would be so sick to have an actual efficient Siri with the AirPods Pro and Beats Studio Pro, so you can actually ask questions and get answers other than here's a link I found. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Here's a link I found on the web, or I don't know that one. All that stuff, just utterly useless. It may as well not be there. So all that has to go. You should never get any of those answers. If we get to the stage where you do not get any of those giving up answers, then it's done. It works. It still feels like we're a little way off that. It's funny they say all this about protecting your photos and info, but at the end you can give ChatGPT access. Yeah, but again, it's a choice, isn't it? And it does very clearly say, it asks the question, are you happy to share this with ChatGPT? If you say yes, that transaction happens. So I know what you mean, though. I saw a meme that said, I do not want AI to write my emails and letters, leaving me more time for laundry and cleaning. I want AI to do the laundry and cleaning, leaving me more time for writing. That's such a good point. I mean, I'm a writer, so I want to write. I don't trust a machine to write for me, but yeah, that's such a good point. This is a good point. Crazy that tvOS 18 works on an Apple TV almost 9 years old. Does it? I didn't know that. That's brilliant, though, isn't it? The Apple TV must have the longest support for older hardware. Surely, that's ridiculous. What else have we got? I will be wrapping up soon, guys. Get your last questions in. Some people have got the developer beta from the sounds of it. James says, just trying out the mass feature on Notes as well as the handwritten tool. Very impressive how fast it works. I'm jealous now. I want to have access to it. There's me saying, I don't do the betas. As soon as I hear people using it, I get itchy feet. I want to do it. That's so cool, though. Someone, Slow Cuba, is saying it doesn't seem to know about complex numbers. I wouldn't know how to push it, so I'm the worst person to even think about testing that. Oh, this looks like a good question. Sunny says, if you could buy multiple Mac monitors or a Vision Pro with the new virtual ultra-wide display in Vision OS 2, what would you find more productive? That's a really good question. I think I'd find the multiple Mac monitors more productive. Certainly more enjoyable to use, because the biggest problem with Vision Pro is it cannot be fixed with a software update. It's the weight of it. It's such a heavy device. I stopped using this for about 3 or 4 weeks just because I was so busy, and I'll be honest, I couldn't think of a use for it. And then recently I've been doing a little bit more work at home and needed to do some video editing, which means using this in conjunction with my MacBook Pro just to get a bigger display. And I'd forgot, it seemed worse how heavy it was. It was really uncomfortable. That is the problem with it, and that's why multiple monitors will always be better, because you haven't got this great big computer strapped to your face. So until it gets lighter, it's not for everyone, trust me. A few people asking me how you use the iPhone mirroring application. I don't know, I'm afraid. No idea, Tommy. That is a question for Apple. So many more questions coming in. Wow. When is Apple going to release a new Apple TV? Do they need to? I don't know if they need to, do they? Is there anything wrong with the current one? It just works, doesn't it? It doesn't feel slow. Oh God, here we go. Elon Musk is raging. Apple devices will be banned at his companies because he claims it's unacceptable security violation. Why? Oh no. Okay. Oh dear. I'll have to look at that after this. What else have we got? Any other questions, guys? I once heard a statistic that 80% of users of Microsoft apps actually use just 10% of their functionality. I'm sure they do. I mean, that's probably the same for most apps, isn't it, to be fair? Which is what... That is an issue with WWDC. We see all this stuff, and then I always forget what they announced. A month later, I've forgotten about the smaller things that are coming to these new operating systems. All this stuff is going to start, isn't it? Why do you need an A17 Pro or above for Apple Intelligence? Apple Silicon has been the market leading for years. iPhone 13 Pro onwards should be capable and probably is. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Probably is. We don't know. We'll never know. They're never going to tell us this. But they have to cut it off at some point, don't they? Part of that is possibly, it's definitely a technical thing, and some of it is going to be very much a commercially driven decision. There's no two ways about that. They are a business. They have to... Again, I'm not apologising for them. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but there will be a commercial aspect to that decision of 100%. Last few questions. Matthew, will Final Cut Pro ever get text-based editing or transcriptions? They are 2 or 3 years behind. They are, Matthew. I'm a Final Cut Pro user, and I know it like the back of my hand. I can edit a video very, very quickly, but I do hear about the things that you can do on other editing platforms, and I feel left out. And I don't know why. I get the impression, unfortunately, that Final Cut Pro may not have a long shelf life. You know, the fact they don't ever mention it. They mentioned at the end of this WWDC, it said, shot on iPhone, including the drone footage. So the drone footage was shot on the iPhone as well, edited on Mac, but it didn't say what they edited it on. And you'd think, wouldn't you, if they were using Final Cut Pro, their own software, they'd probably mention Final Cut Pro. They didn't, which means they must have been using something else. And for me, that just makes me think, is it... Yeah, I don't know if it's got a long life left, unfortunately. Sam says, everything that was announced looked desperate. Desperate? Okay, yeah, okay. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it was more, this is as much as we want to do to the operating systems, because we've been ploughing lots of development resources into Apple Intelligence, which sounds like a massive undertaking. I know what you're saying by that. I don't think I agree, though. I don't agree. I think... this is what Apple does. They do this every year. They don't care. I don't think it's not desperation. And if Apple Intelligence is as good as they kind of demonstrated, then it's not desperation. It's them. It's them giving their answer to this era we've found ourselves in. Right, last few questions, guys. What have we got? Let's try and pick out some absolute corkers. That's interesting. You said you're using the MacBook Pro mic and speakers right now. It sounds really good and clear. That's good. That's nice to know. If any of you want to do live streaming and you just have a MacBook Pro, you don't have to. I'm using a proper camera, but you could just use the camera on your MacBook Pro. It's nice to know it works. We've had lots of people joining this. It's why bother with all this? I know de-essing and all that sort of stuff, but most people don't care. You do learn when you've done this for several years that the little technical details you absolutely obsess over, 99% of your audience could not care less, which is a bit disappointing, but it's fair enough. Richard, do you have the Apple VR headset? Yes. Lots of love for the new math feature. That's interesting. Wow, there's so many questions. I wish I could answer all your questions, guys, but I do have to go to bed at some point. I've got a very busy week, and I'm still jet lagged from last week. Samsung always does better. I thought we'd get a few of those. Ooh. Do you want Apple to allow us to change the app icons, not just the colour for iOS 19? I'm not bothered, to be honest, Master Boss. I'm not the sort of person to change the look and feel of my icons, but I can see why some people may want to do that. Okay. I think, guys, we are at the end of the questions, and I'll be honest, I do need to get some rest because we've got lots of stuff to do over the next few days. And yeah, thank you for joining me. I do like doing these live streams after these events. I think doing the kind of reaction videos, it's not really worth the effort, to be honest, whereas this is far more interactive. I will answer this question very quickly. What's your ring and watch, please? So the ring is the Ultra Human Air, and the watch is the Garmin Mark Commander. I've been wearing this for quite a while now, and I've not done any content on it at all. I've been teasing it for ages. I've got an idea for a video which does involve some planning and doing something which I'm not looking forward to. But it will come fairly soon, I promise. Still questions coming in. Thanks, guys. Some very nice, lovely comments. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and we'll do these every time there's an event, basically, because why not? It's fun, and I love talking to you guys. So thank you so much for getting involved, and lots of videos on the way. And yeah, we're now into the era of Apple Intelligence, aren't we? Nearly. Will Siri be better? That's all we care about. Cheers, guys. I'm going to sign off now. So, yeah, take care and enjoy the rest of your weeks. Cheers.